Lucas and I have been married for 7 years, and for 7 years, he kept a mistress. After I became pregnant, he broke things off with her and returned to the family. He cooked for me and accompanied me to my prenatal checkups. But on the day his mistress married someone else, he was devastated and publicly interrupted the wedding. They embraced tightly, their faces filled with the joy of being reunited. I smiled bitterly, and the next day, I went to the hospital for an abortion. By the time Lucas rushed to the hospital in panic, I had already had the procedure and handed him the divorce papers. His eyes reddened, and he choked out, "Emily, you've given up on the baby, are you going to give up on me too?" I closed my eyes and whispered, "Lucas, it's been 7 years. I should have given up on you long ago." "Are you sure? Do you really not want this baby?" When the doctor asked again if I was sure about the abortion, my phone screen lit up. It was a message from Lucas. "Baby, my business trip ended early, I'll be home tonight. Are you happy? How have you been these past few days without me? Still feeling sick? What do you want to eat tonight? I'll cook. Or do you want to eat out? I found a new steakhouse that's supposed to be really good. Are you not answering me? Are you sleeping or feeling unwell? Little rascal, making your mommy suffer like this. Just wait till you're born, Daddy's going to spank your little butt." Every word reflected Lucas's concern for me and his anticipation of the baby. During my pregnancy, I had morning sickness and a poor appetite, so he cooked for me himself, 3 meals a day, without fail. He accompanied me to every prenatal checkup, saying he wanted to be involved in the baby's growth. He seemed like the perfect husband and a future great father, but who would have thought that this same man would crash a wedding? That he would hold someone else's bride tightly and promise never to be apart again? At that moment, did he think of me? Of our unborn child? The phone screen kept lighting up, but I turned it face down, no longer looking at it. I took a deep breath and told the doctor, "Yes, I don't want this baby." The doctor told me to come in tomorrow to be admitted for the abortion, and I went home. As soon as I opened the door and changed into my slippers, I was pulled into a warm embrace. "Baby," Lucas's deep, magnetic voice sounded above my head. "I missed you so much, even though it's only been 5 days. Did you and the baby miss me too?" Before I could respond, he cupped my face and kissed me. My body stiffened, and I instinctively pulled away. How strange. The embrace I once longed for, the kisses I could never get enough of, now I found myself resisting. Sensing my distraction, Lucas grew dissatisfied. He gripped my waist tighter and deepened the kiss. At that moment, the crisp scent of pine on him, mixed with a faint sweetness of pear, overwhelmed me. I was instantly reminded of the day before, of how he had publicly interrupted the wedding and tightly embraced Sophia, how he had kissed her tenderly. His face had been lit with a smile of joy at regaining her. He had said, "Sophia, I almost lost you." And again, "We'll never be apart again, we'll always be together." In his arms was Sophia, the mistress he had kept for 7 years. Through our entire marriage, they had broken up and gotten back together again. She had cried like a delicate flower, hitting his back. She had complained, "Why did you only come now? I almost married someone else." They had embraced and kissed in the rain, like the lead characters of a romance novel. Onlookers, unaware of the truth, had taken pictures of the handsome man and beautiful woman, admiring how romantic it all was. Meanwhile, Lucas's wife had stood in the shadows, watching their happiness from the sidelines like an outsider, thinking of how Lucas's arms had held another woman yesterday and now were holding me made my stomach churn. I bent over and dry heaved. Lucas immediately held me up, concerned. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." I pushed his hand away and forced a smile. "Lucas, didn't you mention a great steakhouse? I want steak." Lucas smiled immediately and gently stroked my hair. "All right, whatever you want." The steakhouse Lucas mentioned was near the university. He found a seat by the window and, with practiced ease, ordered 2 steaks. A well-done one for me, and a medium-rare one for himself. When the steaks arrived, he carefully cut mine into small pieces and removed the tough bits. "Emily, you can't eat raw food while you're pregnant." The waitress serving us looked at me enviously and said, "Ma'am, your husband is so good to you. So thoughtful." I smiled but didn't say anything. I just looked at Lucas across from me. I remembered that he never ate beef, or anything raw, not even half-cooked. Once, I had my friend Grace, who was studying in Japan, send me some bluefin tuna so I could make sashimi for him. He didn't even glance at it before throwing it away, coldly saying, "Emily, I don't eat raw food." How can you not remember this after all these years of marriage? Yet now, he ate the steak without a second thought, piece after piece. The restaurant's old decor and dim lighting didn't suit his usual elegance in a suit and tie at all. I had known Lucas for so long, 3 years of dating, 7 years of marriage. I knew exactly what kind of person he was, proud, aloof. He would never normally set foot in such a shabby place. The only explanation was Sophia, the mistress he had kept outside. Sophia liked steak, and this was a place he often brought her to. For her, he learned to cook, learned to be considerate. Every change he made was for another woman. If I hadn't gotten pregnant, would he have truly cut ties with Sophia? Would he have returned to the family? I think, most likely, he wouldn't have. A lump formed in my throat, and a sharp pain spread across my chest. Just then, Lucas's phone screen lit up. He quickly swiped it open, and within seconds, a fond smile appeared on his face. I asked him, "What's making you so happy?" When he looked up at me, the tenderness in his eyes hadn't fully faded. He chuckled, "It's just a cute video of a little cat. If you like, after the baby's born, we can get one," he added. I merely responded with an "oh." Suddenly, I asked, "The weather's nice tonight. Could you come with me to see the sea?" Lucas paused, then instinctively declined. "I've still got some work to handle for the company," even though he had just returned from a business trip. I lowered my gaze and opened my social media. Among the accounts I followed, a user with a cat avatar had posted a new update, romantic preview. "Tonight, we're chasing the blue tears together." Lucas still dropped me off at home. He didn't know that the moment he stepped out the door, I quietly followed him. Sophia was a moderately well-known romance blogger. Her avatar? The cat she and Lucas had raised together. It was thanks to this cat avatar that I discovered Lucas's affair. It all started when he went on a business trip and I video called him. Normally indifferent to pets, I was surprised to see a fluffy, blue golden British short-hair cat behind him, quite adorable. The only peculiar thing was its short tail, like it had been injured before, making the cat instantly recognizable. "Lucas, where did the cat come from?" "A colleague's," he answered casually. I didn't think much of it at the time, but that brief exchange led me to uncover the truth. Afterward, I happened to come across a video featuring that same cat. The user who posted it was named Li Huabai, and the cat was the profile picture. It must have been the owner of the cat, Lucas's colleague, apparently. Curious, I clicked into her profile to see more cat videos, but what I found sent chills down my spine. Over time, Lucas started appearing in her posts. At first, it was just a glimpse of his sleeve or his watch, then, his back appeared. There were even photos of them holding hands on Valentine's Day, and finally, intimate photos of them kissing in bed. The earliest post, dated 7 years ago, was a photo of Lucas, freshly married to me, just starting out as CEO of his company, brimming with confidence. He had been invited to give a lecture at a university, and Sophia had been his student host. She had captioned the post, "Working hard to get closer to Lucas." And so began the story of a young college student chasing after her dream man. I finally understood where Lucas had been on all those missed anniversaries and holidays and how their relationship had developed. 2 months ago, they had broken up. Sophia, under her Li Huabai alias, posted daily heartbreak updates for a month straight. Then one day, she stopped being sad and announced her upcoming wedding, set for yesterday. Pinned to the top of her profile was a post from the early hours of yesterday morning, 2 hands interlocked, wearing matching rings. "For the rest of our lives, we'll never part again." And just now, a new post had appeared. The blue tears didn't disappoint. "It's like the galaxy has a path to follow, just like you." Reconciliation, happiness. From afar, I watched them for a long time, their figures locked in an embrace and kiss. It wasn't until they walked away hand in hand that I chuckled bitterly and headed home. The house was cold. It was Lucas's and my marital home, but I had lived there alone for years. By the time I finished packing for the hospital, it was nearly midnight. Lucas hadn't come home. He had already texted me earlier, saying he wouldn't be back tonight. Before I got pregnant, it wasn't unusual for him to spend nights away. But in the 2 months since he and Sophia broke up, unless he was on a business trip, he had been by my side every night. People are truly strange. Once you get used to someone treating you well, it becomes unbearable to go back to the coldness of before. Lucas, why did you give me hope only to make me despair? I took out the ultrasound report and gently traced the outline of the little one inside me. Tears began to fall. 3 months had passed. She already had tiny hands and feet. My child, it's not that I don't want you. But if you're born into a world where your father can't give you his full love, your childhood won't be happy. I grabbed my suitcase and left. Before leaving, I left a note for him. He would see it as soon as he came home. Going to visit Grace for a few days. Don't disturb me. As the car started and drove farther away from the home Lucas and I shared, I couldn't help but wonder if Lucas knew tonight was his last chance to save this child, his last chance to save me. Would he regret it? The next time we meet, it will probably be for the divorce. The next morning, I went to the hospital. While completing the admission paperwork, I bumped into Dr. Alexander, the doctor who had been helping me with fertility treatments for years. She smiled and said, "Congratulations. After all these years of trying, all those injections and medications, you've finally succeeded. Your husband must be overjoyed. 3 months along now, right?" she asked, glancing at my belly, her face filled with genuine joy. I couldn't help but place a hand on my still flat stomach and forced a smile. "Yes, 3 months. Dr. Alexander's smile deepened at my confirmation. 3 months means it's stable now. At that moment, she saw the hospital admission notice in my hand and furrowed her brows. "Why are you being admitted? Are you feeling unwell? Do you need my help?" Looking at her concerned face, my nose suddenly stung with emotion. Fighting back the tears that were about to fall, I shook my head. "Dr. Alexander, actually, this time I'm being admitted to have an abortion." Dr. Alexander's frown deepened. "Why are you choosing to abort? Is the baby not developing well?" "No, it's because of me," I replied. Dr. Alexander sighed, her face filled with pity. "Emily, this baby didn't come easily for you. You've been coming to see me for pregnancy treatments for, 7 years now? I still remember the first time I met you. You were holding your husband's hand, begging me to help you have a child. You know, this might be your only chance at pregnancy. Does your husband know that you don't want this baby?" I shook my head lightly. Dr. Alexander's expression showed understanding. I knew she had figured it out. She patted my shoulder, her face full of sympathy. "My dear, if your parents knew how much pain and sorrow you're going through, their hearts would be shattered. If I had typical parents, knowing their daughter was suffering like this, they'd want to tear that man apart. But, I have no parents. Lucas is my only family in this world. He was the one who gave me warmth when I lost my parents at 18, and at 21, he gave me a home. Over the years, his busy career meant he increasingly neglected me. I didn't blame him. I always thought, if we had a child, would that anchor his heart? Would that cold, empty home finally feel alive? It turns out, I was right. I will never forget the moment I told him I was pregnant, how he was overjoyed. He picked me up and spun me around in circles. "Emily, I've never been this happy before," he said. "I'm going to be a father." And I will never forget the joy I felt when I found out he had ended things with the other woman, for the sake of our child, for the sake of our home. But I was wrong, so wrong from the very beginning. Cheating is something that happens either 0 times or countless times, it's never forgivable. The moment Lucas started seeing another woman behind my back, our future together ended. I know how hard it was to get pregnant. All the endless injections, medications, tests, and hospital visits, along with countless judgmental looks from Lucas's parents. But I cannot spend the rest of my life entangled with the wrong person, just to have this child. I have to be true to myself first, before anything else. I thought Lucas would quickly notice I wasn't home, but I was wrong. It's been 3 days since I was admitted, and he hasn't called. That means he hasn't been home in 3 days. He hasn't even seen the note I left. Sophia must be back, and he's reverted to the cold Lucas he used to be. Bed 12, here are your meds for today. I took the 3 small white pills from the nurse and swallowed them silently. This medication, misoprostol, would easily end my baby's life. The nurse said I should walk around after taking it, so I wandered through the hospital, quietly waiting for the drug to take effect. As I neared the outpatient clinic, I suddenly saw two familiar figures in the distance. My husband, whom I hadn't seen in 3 days, was at the hospital with another woman. Sophia's face was full of pitiful charm. "Lucas, I don't know if the pain is because you were too intense," she pouted. "Don't be mad at me, okay?" Lucas pinched the bridge of his nose, looking a bit frustrated. "Sophia, this time you've gone too far. You know perfectly well my wife." He didn't even finish his sentence before Sophia's tears began to fall. She threw herself into Lucas's arms, trembling as she said, "Lucas, don't leave me. I'm just scared that you'll leave me again." Lucas sighed, wrapping his arms around her waist. His expression softened as he gently said, "As long as you don't provoke Emily, I won't leave you." Sophia obediently nodded, but her eyes were still filled with resentment. She wiped her tears, took Lucas's hand, and playfully swung it back and forth. Her face lit up with excitement. "Lucas, I want to go to Disneyland. We can't get married, but we should at least have a honeymoon, right? Just one day. It won't interfere with your next prenatal appointment with her, will it? Please?" Lucas tapped her nose affectionately and smiled indulgently. "All right. I did the math. Tomorrow was the day Lucas was supposed to come with me for my prenatal checkup." I chuckled bitterly to myself. I thought I didn't care about him anymore, but seeing this scene still made my heart ache. Even my belly began to cramp slightly. Slowly, I realized the medication might be taking effect. Holding my stomach, I sat down on a nearby chair as a wave of pain washed over me, causing my entire body to tremble and cold sweat to break out. When I finally recovered and looked up again, I saw Sophia standing right in front of me, smiling brightly. "My boyfriend went to get the car. Mind if I sit here for a moment?" Without waiting for a response, she sat down beside me and tilted her head, smiling as she spoke. "Nice to meet you. I'm Sophia, Lucas's girlfriend." She emphasized the words girlfriend heavily. "Lucas and I have been together for 7 years now. You know that, right? And you should also know that over the years, he's spent every Valentine's Day, Chishi festival, and New Year's Eve with me. Even on your 7th wedding anniversary, he spent the entire day with me. And you? Crying on the phone, hoping he would spend time with you. How pitiful." She smiled sweetly, her beautiful eyes brimming with ambition. "You really can endure, huh? If I were you, I would have given up a long time ago." I turned my head to look at her, suppressing the increasing pain in my abdomen, and coldly said, "Are you done? If you are, please leave. This is a hospital. Who are you to tell me to leave?" Sophia raised her voice, retorting. Hearing that, I suddenly raised an eyebrow and smiled. "You're saying all this because you know you'll never be able to marry Lucas. As long as we don't get divorced, you'll always be the mistress." Sophia jumped up, raised her chin, and looked down at me with a superior air. She stomped her foot, furious, and said, "You're only holding on to him because of that lump of flesh in your belly. If you weren't pregnant, he wouldn't even want to look at you. Let me tell you the truth, I'm already preparing to conceive. Once I get pregnant, Lucas will definitely divorce you." Whether Lucas would have a child with her or divorce me no longer mattered. Because the pain in my abdomen had become unbearable. My vision started to blur, and I could no longer hear what Sophia was saying. Another wave of excruciating pain hit, followed by a warm gush of liquid below. I could no longer hold on. My body went limp, and I collapsed from the chair. With my last ounce of strength, I grabbed Sophia's hand, begging her to call for a doctor, but she was already scared out of her wits. She kept mumbling, "It wasn't me, it wasn't me," then ran off without even looking back. I slipped into unconsciousness. In a hazy state, I saw countless people in white and green uniforms surrounding me. I heard many unfamiliar and anxious voices around me. "So much blood. How is she losing this much blood? Quick! Get Dr. Alexander. Tell her there's a patient with severe bleeding who needs immediate rescue." Soon, I heard Dr. Alexander's voice. She grasped my hand. Normally composed, she was now urgently calling my name, "Emily. Can you hear me?" I desperately wanted to open my eyes, but my eyelids felt as if they weren't mine. So heavy, so tired. I wanted to raise my hand, to tell her I could hear, but my hand wouldn't move. Dr. Alexander's voice came again, "Get her to the operating room, hurry. Hang in there, sweetie. Don't fall asleep. I will save you. As the medical staff moved me onto the operating table, the blood kept flowing. Prepare gauze, we need to pack the uterus. It's not working. Doctor, we can't stop the bleeding. How much blood has she lost? 2,000 milliliters. Open her up. Get ready for uterine artery ligation, figure of 8 suture. Time passed, it felt like an eternity, though it was probably only a few minutes. I heard the beeping of machines and the anesthetist's alarmed shout, she's lost 3,500 milliliters of blood. She's going into shock. Another wave of frantic activity surrounded me. More tubes were connected to my hands. I heard panicked voices, Doctor, we can't stop the bleeding. She's lost too much blood. Why didn't the person with her call us earlier? Doctor, we need to consider a hysterectomy. Dr. Alexander cursed angrily, no. She hasn't had a child yet. We can't remove the uterus unless we have no other choice. Get more blood. Contact the blood bank. Doctor, we need a blood donation certificate to get more blood. Where's her family? Where is Emily's husband? Get him to donate. Call her family. If they don't come soon, she might not make it. Lucas, he's probably on his way to Disneyland with Sophia. Doctor, we can't get through to him. Call again. It's still not going through. Keep trying. What could be more important than saving his wife's life? In the end, I don't know if they ever reached Lucas. I could feel my strength draining away, little by little. My body no longer felt like my own. Just before I completely lost consciousness, I thought I heard Lucas's frantic, helpless voice, almost screaming my name, Emily. An endless darkness engulfed me, my eyelids growing unbearably heavy. I heard the beeping of machines and Lucas's voice. He was furious, angrily shouting at someone, why did she miscarry? Who gave you the right to perform an abortion on my wife without our consent? Why did she bleed so much? She was in the hospital, for crying out loud. Why wasn't this noticed earlier? Why did you wait until she was hemorrhaging before saving her? You killed our baby. Just wait, I'm the CEO of Lucas Group, and I'll sue your hospital into bankruptcy. He asked so many whys. Anyone who heard him would think he was a caring husband. But all the doctors in that room had been part of the rescue effort. One of them, visibly upset, retorted, Mr. Lucas, please calm down. Without the patient's signature, we would never have administered the abortion pills. Lucas laughed bitterly, as if he'd heard the most ridiculous joke. What are you talking about? My wife would never get an abortion on her own. Do you know how many medications she took, how many injections she endured, just to keep this baby? This is the child we've been waiting for 7 years. There's no way she wouldn't want it. Then, I heard the doctor hand something to him for him to see. It was probably me who signed the abortion consent form. Lucas gave it a quick glance and, upon seeing my signature at the bottom, suddenly became both angry and ashamed. He furiously tore the form into pieces. Enraged, he grabbed the doctor's collar and shouted, You forged this, didn't you? My wife loves me so much, there's no way she'd abort our child. Let me think, what's the punishment for forging a signature? I couldn't bear to listen anymore. I wanted to wake up and tell him it wasn't the doctor's fault. I was the one who didn't want our child. But no matter what, I couldn't open my eyes. All I could hear were the sounds of his fists, punch after punch, hitting the doctor, until another familiar voice echoed in the room. Lucas, stop. If you don't stop, I'm calling the police. The moment I heard that voice, 2 tears uncontrollably streamed down my face. It was my best friend, Grace. Grace rushed forward and pulled the now out-of-control Lucas away, kicking him hard. Lucas, how dare you blame the doctor? Don't you want to know why Emily aborted the baby? Let me tell you. She found out about your affair a long time ago. You scumbag, you deceived her so much. If you don't like her and don't care about her, why couldn't you just let her go earlier? Lucas staggered back, and the last glimmer of hope in his eyes was extinguished. Still unsatisfied, Grace kicked him again and coldly said, Lucas, if I had come any later today, Emily would be dead. Let me ask you, when Emily was hemorrhaging and desperately needed a family member to donate blood, where were you? I was. Lucas's pupils suddenly contracted, and he fell silent. The room grew eerily quiet, save for the beeping of the heart monitor and my faint, raspy voice, "You were with Sophia." Seeing that I was awake, both Lucas and Grace rushed to my side, speaking at the same time. "Dear, you're awake? Emily, how are you feeling?" I ignored Lucas and turned to Grace. "Why? Are you back in the country?" The night before I was hospitalized, I was feeling terribly upset. After much thought, Grace was the only one I could confide in. I didn't expect this wonderful woman to rush back from Japan because of me and save my life. Grace's face was pale from the blood she had donated. With tears in her eyes, she gripped my hand, her face full of concern. "Emily, I was so scared. I almost lost you, my best friend." I held her hand tightly, speaking softly, "Don't cry. I'm okay now. We're going to be best friends for life." After comforting Grace, I shifted my gaze to Lucas, who was standing behind her the whole time. "Lucas." I called his name. He hurriedly pushed Grace aside and rushed to my side, his eyes full of deep affection and concern. "I'm here. Dear, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I promise, from now on, I'll always be by your side. I also promise, I'll cut all ties with Sophia. I'll delete her contact right now." I interrupted him, my throat tightening. "Lucas, don't call me dear. You disgust me." "What?" Lucas froze. I said, "You disgust me." After saying that, I looked at him steadily. I watched as the despair in Lucas's eyes grew, and the faint glimmer of hope shattered. Perhaps because he was planning to take his favorite girl to the happiest place on earth, Lucas was dressed in a light pink suit today, making him look tall and elegant, incredibly handsome. From 18 to 28, time had not left a mark on his face. He was still so dazzling, even more mature and composed now. And what about me? For 10 years, my heart had been tied to him, my emotions rising and falling with his actions. I was filled with anxiety, losing my sense of self. I didn't want to live like this anymore. I pulled out the divorce papers I had already prepared from my bag and handed them to him. "Lucas, let's get a divorce." Lucas staggered, almost unable to stand. His eyes suddenly turned red, and he let out a sob. "Emily, you gave up the child, and now you want to give up on me too?" I closed my eyes for a moment and softly said, "Lucas, it's been 7 years. I should have given up on you long ago. If I had known about your affair earlier, I wouldn't have waited until now to decide to divorce you. Do you think you hit it well? Foolishly thinking you could have your fun outside and still keep things stable at home? Let me tell you, your darling Sophia has already posted every little detail about your time together online. These past few days, if you'd gone home, you would have seen the note I left for you and known I wasn't there. Maybe then, you could have saved this child." Lucas trembled all over, shaking his head repeatedly. He clutched the thin divorce papers, his eyes filled with regret. His voice was hoarse, crying like a child who had done something wrong, repeating the same words over and over, forgive me, Emily, I won't divorce you. I'll break things off with her completely. Please, Emily, give me a chance to make it up to you." I shook my head and firmly refused. "No, I'm not worthy. Do you know? Even though I knew about your affair, I was overjoyed when you returned to our family for the sake of the child. I knew you loved me and cared about the baby. Otherwise, you wouldn't have broken up with Sophia. But you thought that returning to the family and still liking Sophia didn't conflict with each other, didn't you?" After saying so much, I was truly exhausted, and my patience had worn thin. Take a look at the property division terms. If everything seems fine, go ahead and sign the divorce papers. However, Lucas suddenly went mad, violently tearing the divorce papers into shreds. He held me tightly, almost in a frenzy. "I won't let you leave me. I owe you, and I will repay it bit by bit. I'll cook for you every day, stay with you every night, and even donate blood, as long as." I frowned and was about to speak, but Grace interrupted me. "Lucas, do you not understand human language? Emily said she doesn't want to see you. I'll take care of her. If not, there are caregivers. You being here will only hinder Emily's recovery." Lucas's gaze turned sharp, ready to argue, but he was stopped by what he saw on the TV behind him. Entertainment gossip blaring from the screen, breaking. Lucas Group CEO rekindles romance with internet celebrity rumored to be back together. A real-life version of the domineering CEO falling for a regular girl, swoon-worthy. It seemed Sophia couldn't wait any longer to make her position official. I smiled faintly. Looks like you don't have time to be with me, Lucas. Oh, by the way, the last person I saw before my hemorrhage was Sophia. Lucas found Sophia in the beach house. As soon as he entered, she hugged him from behind. Lucas, you finally came back. Do you know how scared I was when you left me all alone? This time, Lucas didn't return her embrace. Instead, he pushed her away and looked out the window at the vast ocean. Lucas remembered this house. He bought it 5 years ago, at the peak of the housing market. After buying it, he gave it to Sophia to live in, and it became their love nest for many years. Why had he bought this house in the first place? Lucas couldn't quite remember. He didn't like the seaside, too humid, and the salty air was unpleasant. The sound of waves crashing against the rocks during high tide was too loud, disturbing his light sleep. But there was someone who did like it. She said she loved the sound of the ocean's waves, it reminded her of her childhood by the sea. Emily's home was by the sea. When her parents returned from fishing, they would hold her and sit on the pier, watching the tides rise and fall, the clouds drift by. She said she wanted their home to be by the sea. Her old home by the sea had her parents, and now the new seaside home would have the person she loved the most. It seemed like she had never lost love, she had always been surrounded by it. There weren't many houses that fit her criteria, and prices were sky high at the time. Lucas had just taken over the Lucas Group and was short on cash. It took him 2 years to find this one. The owners were an elderly couple. The house wasn't large, but the garden was filled with flowers. When they sold it, they had just celebrated their golden wedding anniversary and were moving abroad to be with their son. This house had witnessed their happiness, and they hoped to pass that happiness on to the next owner. There were many buyers, but Lucas won the bid with a simple line, "My wife loves the ocean." Now he remembered. Emily. It was Emily who loved the sea, so why didn't he let her live in the house? Why had he let another woman take over? Was it because the other woman excited him? Lucas knew Sophia's marriage to someone else had been a sham. But still, he had become crazed with jealousy and had rushed to break up the wedding. Was he afraid of losing Sophia? No, he was afraid of losing the thrill of the affair. Foolish. His lips curled into a bitter smile as Lucas suddenly ran out to the garden. It was desolate. In the bright summer sun, not a single flower bloomed. Where are the flowers? Where are the flowers? Lucas grabbed Sophia by the chin, asking viciously. Sophia's face turned pale, her beautiful eyes filled with fear. She pried at Lucas's hands, gasping for air. The flowers, cough cough, the flowers have been gone, for a long time. You said, you didn't like, cough cough, bugs, so I had them, pulled out. Lucas suddenly let go. A wave of regret, like a flood, surged through him, overwhelming and uncontrollable. He collapsed to the ground, clutching the bare earth, muttering, "Gone, gone, everything's gone." The flowers were gone. He hadn't taken care of the flowers left by the elderly couple. And he hadn't let the person who truly loved the place live there. So, the happiness of the golden anniversary wasn't passed on to him. Emily didn't want him anymore, either. He had no home. Lucas felt like a fool. He had betrayed Emily's sincere heart and wasted 10 years of her youth. He had always known how hard Emily had worked to have their child. In the early days of their marriage, Emily went to the doctor almost every week. Every time she came back from the hospital, she brought a big bag of medicine. She would even drag him to complete their duty on a strict schedule. Once or twice, he was willing to cooperate, but when it became too frequent, it turned into a monotonous task. He lost interest. It was at that time that Sophia appeared. Bold, passionate, and with the innocent charm of a student, she captivated him. He quickly fell for her. The first time he went to a hotel with Sophia, he felt a moment of panic. But he comforted himself, thinking it was just one time, Emily would never know. And even if she did, so what? She loved him so much, she would surely forgive him. He never expected that his affair would last for 7 years. He also didn't anticipate that Sophia would post everything about them online. If Lucas was a scumbag, then Sophia was the devil who tempted him into the abyss. Thinking of this, Lucas suddenly snapped and slapped Sophia hard several times. "It's all your fault. You made me lose my child, my wife." But even the slaps couldn't ease his anger. Lucas started punching and kicking Sophia. Why did you put me online? Why did you provoke Emily? Why didn't you call the doctor when Emily was hemorrhaging? Do you know you almost killed her? Punch after punch, Lucas hit Sophia violently, as if blaming her for everything. Soon, Sophia was on the verge of death. She wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and began to laugh coldly. Yes, I'm guilty for being the other woman, but what about you? It takes two to tango. If you had been strong-willed, would you have cheated? Lucas, you regret it now? It's too late. Lucas kicked her again, cursing, bitch. Sophia rolled her eyes and spat out a mouthful of blood. Still, Lucas didn't stop. He dragged her toward the car. Go apologize to Emily. If she doesn't forgive you, I won't either. But Lucas never made it to the hospital with Sophia. Their argument had been so loud that it had already drawn the attention of neighbors and beachgoers. Seeing the blood, the crowd quickly called the police and an ambulance. By the time Lucas dragged Sophia out of the yard, the police had surrounded him. Someone called in, reporting you for assault. You'll have to come with us, they said. He had Sophia to thank for leaking everything to the paparazzi. The crowd recognized the two fighting as the day's entertainment headline stars. So much for CEO falls in love with me. It's more like CEO beats me to death. This is the fastest public downfall of a couple I've ever seen. Wasn't this Lucas guy already married? Is this woman the mistress? Cheating, abusive man, cancel him. Hearing the crowd's comments, Lucas's eyes turned red. Ignoring the police, he tried to attack Sophia again, but the officers restrained him. Calm down. Lucas's affair and assault of his mistress became the day's top headline. With the scandal all over the news, the Lucas Group's reputation was in tatters. The next day, their stock plummeted, and within a week, the company lost $50 billion in market value. Soon, Sophia's medical report came out. Lucas had severely injured her, rupturing her spleen, which meant he had committed a serious criminal offense. He was now facing prison time. Lucas's parents, who had always treated their only son as the center of their world, were scrambling to bail him out. They even wanted to come to me, their despised daughter-in-law, to help beg for Sophia's forgiveness. But it was too late. By the time they arrived at Lucas and my marital home, I had already moved out. Without Sophia's letter of forgiveness, Lucas was sentenced a month later. He was convicted of intentional assault, causing serious injury, and sentenced to 7 years in prison. When the news reached me, I had fully recovered and decided to embark on a world tour with my best friend Grace. I wanted to make up for the years I had lost, bound by marriage. Before leaving the city, I visited Lucas in prison one last time. I passed the divorce papers through the small window. This time, Lucas didn't hesitate. He took the pen with his handcuffed hand and signed his name on the divorce papers. Lucas Group has gone bankrupt and is being liquidated. We'll split the assets evenly. I won't take more than my share. Reflect on your actions in prison. 7 years. How many 7 years are there in a lifetime? I smiled, relieved, and turned to leave. Behind me, I heard Lucas's voice. Emily, if I hadn't cheated, would our ending have been different? I'm sorry, that day you said you wanted to see the sea, I didn't go with you. When you needed me during the hemorrhage, I wasn't there either. I've already donated blood in prison. My blood couldn't save you, but at least it can help someone else. That gives me some peace. Emily, I love you. The last sentence was spoken with difficulty, filled with endless regret. I didn't look back. I wouldn't look back. The road ahead of me was bright and free, no longer bound by anyone or anything. The world outside the detention center was vibrant. The last rays of the sunset bathed my face. I closed my eyes, savoring the warmth of the September sun. The past slowly faded away. When I opened my eyes again, Grace was standing by the roadside, smiling sweetly, holding 2 suitcases. Emily, we're going to miss our flight. I nodded firmly. I grabbed one of the suitcases and joined her in the taxi. I was ready to embrace my brand new life.